Hey everyone, Violet here. Just wanted to share with you today my experience being vegan and being pregnant, my experience with the first trimester. So today I am drinking some tea. It is the Traditional Medicinals Pregnancy Tea, and this is my favorite brand of tea. It's organic, it's really wonderful. There's no plastic in the tea bag, so it doesn't leach out into your tea. Anyway, I'm being extra cautious about all of those little things while being pregnant, so it's a really good tea to drink. Anyway, so my experience with my first trimester, my partner and I found out that we're having a baby at 5 weeks, and it was a total surprise, completely not planned, but a happy surprise nonetheless. And I felt so good. I had so much energy. I was really happy, really excited. I felt strangely calm and at peace, even though so much was going on. I did a lot of research on herbs to avoid because I drink a lot of herbal tea. That's a really crucial time. I was planning to eat only organic food. I was excited and motivated. And I read that in vegans, morning sickness is way less common. There's a lot of evidence that seems to back this up, so I was like, great! And unfortunately, with me, that did not end up being the case. So morning sickness hit me at week 7, and it lasted until week 17, so there were 10 weeks of nausea that I experienced. And I did read online, however, that I kept researching how long does morning sickness last, and it's a big window, it's a big varied answer, and I'd read other people's experiences, but I also read that it's good to not do that and not scare yourself, because people might put their more horrible or traumatic experiences on the internet rather than, if you feel positive and are able to get through life normally, then you might not write about it. So don't compare your pregnancy to me. Everyone is completely different. I'm sure even if you are also vegan, could be completely different. So morning sickness for me was not throwing up. I felt really nauseous when I woke up, all the way until the evening time. I felt really low energy. It's a hard feeling to describe if you're not experiencing it in the moment. When I think back to it, it feels more like maybe I could have done more. I could have done more exercise. I think that's supposed to really help, taking walks. But in the moment, I was in bed. It was very difficult. At the same time, quarantine started happening for coronavirus, so luckily I was able to get a break. Throughout that entire 10 weeks, I think I only actually threw up 3 times, and it was when my stomach was completely empty. So it was never because of something that I ate, which I do think lines up with some of the research about vegan pregnancy and avoiding certain animal products that perhaps some of the morning sickness is protecting your baby from ingesting those ingredients that could be harmful. And everyone, I'm sure, has different opinions on this, so no worries if you have other ideas about it. I think there are lots of reasons for morning sickness, but I did find that the nausea was keeping me from eating certain things and smelling certain things. So things that I would have every single day before I was pregnant, like matcha, green tea, I could not have it. A lot of things that were green I couldn't have. Just the thought was terrible. So I'm going to tell you the things that I did eat that I really was able to handle. And a pattern I want to tell you before we get into that is that I would often have, it's not even like a craving really, it was more that everything else sounded gross but this one thing. I would go through periods where I would only eat that one type of food, and then I would get sick of that type of food and have to move on to the next. And this lasted that entire period of the first trimester pretty much. So things that I was able to eat: fruit, lots of fruit, smoothies, berries. I was able to eat carbs. I was able to eat things like white bread. I would eat crackers, salty chips. It was really important to keep something in my stomach. If I got too hungry, then I would feel sick, but I also wasn't able to eat a lot at a time. So throughout the whole day, I would have to be snacking, basically. So crackers and chips were important for that. I was able to eat spaghetti with marinara sauce. I would have waffles with maple syrup and cereal with almond milk. And that was pretty much my diet for that entire 10-week period of time. So the other thing I had trouble with was drinking water. And you're supposed to drink more water. I think that contributed to my nausea, as if I wasn't getting enough water. But for some reason I had trouble drinking just like plain water, so I'd have to mix it with juice. Or I'd have to have seltzer water. And at first we were going through so many cans of seltzer water, and finally we got one of those things you can have in your kitchen that makes the seltzer water bubbly. And that was really good, so I would drink that. I would put berries in it. I would have smoothies. At one point I blended up a lot of watermelons, and so I would have watermelon water. Watermelons are mostly water. That really helped. We tried that with I think it was honeydew melon as well. That was really helpful. And same thing with the water. There would be like a type of liquid that I could drink, and then it would change, and then I would like not want to touch whatever I was drinking before. So unfortunately, during the time of quarantine, when we're not supposed to be going to the store, I had to keep asking my partner, like, please, can you go to the store? Can you find me this? It's just how it was. So there were pluses and minuses to being in the first trimester pregnant during COVID quarantine. The other issue that I had in my first trimester of pregnancy was called Piriformis Syndrome. And what that is that the specific muscle in like near the sciatica nerve, if you sit for too long on a hard surface, that can trigger it. But basically this muscle would spaz a lot and would make it very difficult for me to put weight on it, very difficult to walk. I think this was a big reason why I didn't exercise much during this time. Apparently the muscles around your pelvic area are all expanding and softening. So that means that you're way more prone to injury if you overstretch or strain your muscle in some sort of way, which I did. With that particular syndrome, it's actually best just to give it rest. So that's what I did. Luckily those things coincided, because I can't imagine if I had like been feeling really sick and then I had Piriformis Syndrome and I couldn't like get out and walk and do things. After I was done being sick, I was so appreciated taking walks and being outside. So I dealt with both of those things at the same time, and by the end of week 17, I was totally energetic and ready to go. So if you're suffering from morning sickness, like, it will end. Even if it takes a long time, it will end, and you're not going to associate your whole pregnancy with it, because now I'm having so much more beautiful experiences and loving the second trimester so much more. Eating a lot of bland foods really helped, and salty foods, and drinking as much water as I possibly could get myself to drink. The other thing that made me feel really nauseous, which I avoided, was garlic and onions. So again, the blander the food, the better. Throughout this time, I was still going and getting prenatal checkups, and every time I would get my blood test. So initially they do a prenatal panel where they take a lot of different tests at once, and I'm happy to say it was excellent results and levels. Even B12, everything was really good. They were really complimentary about my results. I hear a siren. The one thing I was low on was vitamin D, which again, with a web search, I thought that redheads produced their own vitamin D, so I never took it as a supplement. And this was also winter time, so I wasn't really getting any sun, I wasn't going outside. So apparently, I don't know if that's false really, but it's certainly not something to rely on. So I started taking vitamin D supplements. And when I say started taking, I actually had a lot of issues taking my vitamins during the first trimester when I was feeling really nauseous. Luckily, in those 2 weeks, when I found out, 5 weeks to week 7, when the nausea hit me, I was really taking a lot of folate, because that's so important at the beginning of your first trimester to take. But throughout that time, I was feeling really guilty because I couldn't bring myself to take the vitamins. It was enough for me to get myself to eat and drink liquids. So one thing I think is important to say is, like, no matter how health conscious you are, it's impossible to have a perfect pregnancy, so don't hold yourself to crazy standards. It will be okay. Your body uses a lot of its reserves, to my understanding, of like what you were eating before you were pregnant and all the nutrients that you had leading up to that time. My midwife said that as long as I was keeping food down, she was happy. So I did lose a little bit of weight in the first trimester. I think I lost about 5 pounds, but I've definitely gained it back. It was okay. So I guess my big tip would be that if you're planning on getting pregnant, then leading up to that time, be as healthy as you can be. Luckily, I was leading up to that time, even though it wasn't planned. I was eating really healthy, mostly whole food, vegan diet. The only supplement I think I was taking before that was B12, and like I said, my blood tests were really good. So if you're planning, just know that you're building up your reserves during that time, just in case. Everyone's different. Not everyone gets morning sickness. I don't really understand it or why exactly it happens. I'm just glad that I'm through that period of time. Anyway, I hope this video was informative and helpful, not discouraging. It definitely was not the best time of my pregnancy, but hopefully I shared with you some of the ways that you can help it. Hopefully you won't also be dealing with like a crazy muscle spasm that makes it impossible to walk at the same time. So just be cautious, don't overstretch. I'm doing a lot of prenatal yoga, and I'm being cautious not to overstretch, especially in those areas around your hips. Very important. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're pregnant, what your experience has been, if you're also vegan and pregnant, and how's that going for you. And thank you so much. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.